At the beginning of this first Zoom conference, I would like to welcome you all to our Zoom discussion. First one within the Project International Webinar School. That is how we named our international summer school, that we wanted to have summer school this year as well, traditional one, but it, considering all of this, that is the main topic of our school, we couldn't manage to gather people in one place and plan that ahead. So we organized this, and NATO PDD accepted this kind of gatherings, discussions, and so on. So NATO PDD is the sponsor of this international webinar school. I hope you all feel inspired in the next 1 hour to discuss on the Western Balkan region and role of NATO, Western Balkan region in global health crisis, how it manages, and to discuss what you heard in our webinars from our distinguished speakers. I hope all of you, of course, watched the webinars, especially these first 2 or 3. Because in the second topic we had, as you know, 5 speakers, and we divided the webinar in 2 parts. So the topics are related to North Macedonia as the latest member of NATO, and generally speaking, Western Balkan countries, as I said, role of NATO, etc. So we had expert speakers that are also some of them today with us, and you heard their interesting presentations and some ideas of how to approach the security issues in the future. So the idea here today is to involve you in this project, young people, and it is, as we foresaw it, it is very similar to how we organize simulations when we gather personally. So we have, some games that we play. We will not do that today, but we can ask you to share your opinions, to ask questions, because our speakers are here, and to participate in the discussion that is actually in academic level could be very interesting for your pursuing your career in some kind of policy issues, etc. So it is foreseen that this Zoom conference lasts for an hour, a little bit more if you all agree, but let's stick to an hour so that we don't go to more details than it's necessary. Let's make it a fruitful discussion, that we don't get tired. And of course, don't forget to be passionate when contributing to this discussion and making with that approach a better world, because that's what you young people are supposed to do and supposed to want to do. So the topics, as I mentioned, are, as you know, from the program as well. So let me just briefly go through the webinars and the topic and what every expert said, of course, really briefly. So Professor Ilber Sela from North Macedonia pointed that there was a consensus in all political factors in his country that when they were discussing about NATO membership, and that was actually a great thing, that this kind of country with very big division is found a political consensus. And he is stressing that there should be a point where all these streams in North Macedonia have to overcome all stereotypes of all ethnic communities in his country, promoting multi-ethnic, multi-cultural and multi-language society. Ms. Ljubica Pendarovska, also from North Macedonia, she stressed that the importance of the Republic of North Macedonia becoming a NATO member country, especially is visible in this period of pandemic. Mr. Ilya Djugumanov, who is also today with us, is looking the world in his country from the position of the Atlantic Council, and he stressed the fact that North Macedonia is becoming NATO member country, and that is good for strengthening country's military capacity. So now we go to the second topic, where we had 5 speakers. Professor Besor Trecaj reflected on recent history of why NATO is why is it very important for Kosovo that NATO is present in his country, and he thinks that NATO's presence in Kosovo will motivate a dialogue with Serbia. Professor Starova stressed importance of values as foundations of our civilization, and values are very important, especially for this Western Balkan region, whose security is, as Professor Starova mentioned, very fragile. Professor Miloš Šolaja, who is also today with us, and you can ask questions, all of our speakers today, talked about security challenges in Bosnia and Herzegovina, stressing COVID-19 pandemic and migrants as most important ones as challenges, and also terrorism, poverty, and economic underdevelopment that is very important to think about in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Professor Zoran Kekovic from Belgrade made a very interesting point, saying that COVID-19 crisis made everything we know on crisis management inapplicable in practice, and it is a fact that so far epidemics were not seen as security issues, at least not in top 10. And Dr. Nikoleta Djukanovic from Montenegro named many reasons that show how important it is for Montenegro to be in NATO, and also stressed military modernization according to NATO standards, which is very short and briefly about her presentation. So let me now maybe ask our distinguished speakers to say a few words. Just how do you feel now being in this Zoom? Be brief so that we can give the floor to our young colleagues. I will not mention. I will not give the floor by any order, but only by the order that I see your faces in this Zoom conference. So first is Vesford. So Vesford, please a few words about your opinion on this webinar school.
Yes, Monica. Hello to everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on this endeavor, and that you are keeping up the spirit of the Atlantic Council of Croatia, and you are continuing with the activities despite the passing away of Professor Vukadinovic, which was a great loss, of course, to Atlantic Council of Croatia, but also for us, whom we had the opportunity to work with. Of course, such webinars are very welcome, and in one aspect, I think that it is giving us opportunities to connect with much more people who were somehow not able to attend your international schools that were held in Dubrovnik. But on the other side, we are missing Dubrovnik, we are missing in-person contacts with students, with professors, with you. Nevertheless, we have to adapt to the situation, and I think that you as Atlantic Council of Croatia and us as professors and lecturers and also as students, we are adapting quite well in responding to the situation and the need to educate our youth and our students. So I don't want to take too much time. I'm willing to open discussions with students on their comments and their requests regarding NATO's role in the Balkans, in specific also in Kosovo. Thank you very much again, and we'll stay online.
Okay, thank you very much. Miloš, you are the next. Please, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you for your word. Hello, Monica. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad that I have another opportunity to see the majority of people whom I know, particularly from these conferences of International Summer School for Shipan Island, which has become a brand on international studies in this region. And thanking, of course, also as Vesford mentioned, Professor Vukadinovic, who is the man who really gathered all of us for years and years and years. So I'm really glad that we can opportunity to meet again. This time, really using these electronic devices. but there are so many obstacles using borders and travel arrangements or whatever to meet directly, although I really prefer sometimes to have a direct communication face to face because of many other aspects of conferences, not only direct discussion. I think that our region now faces with really many challenges when talk about security. Speaking from the standing point of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I have to recognize that situation is really complicated. At the moment, Bosnia and Herzegovina is not the country who is on the NATO way, and at the moment, I think that way is really frozen. Last year, the question of joining to membership action plan was the most
Milos,
challenging.
let's be brief because
Oh, we'll be brief,
you can
okay.
say that you know, when you are responding to
Just like to
questions.
stress what is the main challenge here.
Yes.
So we have, all of us have to take account that the situation is really complicated and there are few other sides and few other aspects of the situation. About more details we can get back later on.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I would please ask you to be 1 minute, not longer, so that we really can give the floor to young people, and then you can take the floor when you know, they ask you questions. So the next one is Ilya. Ilya, if you are here, you can also say a few words.
Thank you, Monica. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't see you, but probably you know that because your camera
Yes.
isn't on.
Perfect. Actually, first of all, compliments for the initiative by Monica, and thank you for the invitation. It is really pleasure to participate again and to see this forthcoming discussion. Even though I'm sure that on the Šipan Island would be a lot better option than to be here on Zoom. I'm sure that this awkward situation will end soon and we can have that opportunity, and Monica will organize such a meeting. I named my presentation creating certain partnership during uncertain times. I'm pretty sure that everybody had a chance to see the presentation. In order not to take too much time now, my focus was on our path to NATO, our partnership from the beginning, disinformation now, the issues with the COVID pandemic. So I'm looking forward for a good discussion and any questions. So.
Great. And we have Aryan and Nicoletta. Aryan, you are gone, so maybe Nicoletta, if you are here.
Just 1 second.
Ah, you are here. Okay.
Do you see me?
So your camera is only gone. Sorry.
I have a problem just now because I had a phone call and that's a problem.
Okay, so
just
maybe
1 second. Okay.
Right.
Is it okay now?
Yes, we can see you.
It's only 1 minute. So hello, Monica. Thank you very much for being together in this very interesting activity. Hello, all my colleagues and all the other participants. I had already what I had to say in my 35 minutes or less. I don't know how you managed to do it, but anyway, so I'm available for the questions and comments, and I'm sure it will be a very interesting discussion. So again, many congratulations for this activity, and I hope we'll have a wonderful hour together because we have a very important and very, let's say, interesting topic to discuss today. And I'm very curious to know the opinion of the youngsters about this, because to my opinion, and this is the only idea I will just lay stress on, is that our region, our Western Balkan, badly needs fixing the problems. It's a very long time, I would say not lost, but let's say we are, let's say, dragging about because a lot of problems, but still a lot of successes as well. But so that's why I'm very much interested to listen to the new voices and new ideas, what to do in order to give an end to the problems which are more than 20 years or so, and have full-fledged our Western Balkans in NATO, in EU as well. So thanks.
Thank you. And Nicoletta?
Yes, hi, Monica. Hi, everybody. I take this opportunity also to thank you and to the Atlantic Council of Croatia for invitation to participate to this project and also this very interesting webinar. It is really great idea to make this kind of different webinars in one project. It was really very nice pleasure for me to participate, and I'm here for any question, discussion with our younger colleagues from the region. And thank you very much for invitation. And I would like to continue this kind of support and also cooperation with other countries.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. So our young participants, the floor is yours. So feel free to put on your camera, and you don't have to raise your hand unless you hear someone is speaking and then you think you will be in a waiting list of that you want to talk. But do you have any questions? What do you think about security issues that are now present? About security issues, I will say generally. But you heard the webinars, you heard our speakers now having their introduction. So we would like to hear your opinions about the Western Balkan region. Who would be the first one? Nobody would like to open the floor and open the discussion. Slađana, you have a very interesting background, so you are probably very interested in the Western Balkan region. What is your perception of security concerns in this region?
Thank you very much, Monica. I was honestly thinking, like, should I jump in or not? Anyway, yeah, I'm Slađana Lovrić. I hold a master's degree in political science. Temporarily, I'm working for one NGO in Brussels. So let's say that my kind of focus is on the European Green Deal and climate changes, but also social justice and so on. So actually now I'm doing some kind of advocacy towards the EU institutions, and we are trying to encourage EU officials to actually implement this kind of new EU recovery plan on a justice way and so on. But yeah, I was really delighted that I would have a chance to participate in your school. But honestly, at the same time, I was thinking, like, what kind of role NATO has, like, at this moment, because because we are actually facing with kind of security problems, security issues, challenges that are not so much directly in a kind of like a list of NATO objectives. So yeah, we can always say that NATO is important, especially for the Western Balkan, as we saw. But yeah, but I would say that yeah, I don't know. I'm just rethinking that kind of idea, because a few years ago, if you ask me, I will say yes, for sure. NATO is a strong organization, and we need it. But now I would say that Western Balkan or Southeast Europe and so on, that we are really facing also with think that we are not really ecologically sustainable as well. We are producing like so many so many gases. We are using coal and so on. So yeah, and let's say that I'm really trying to combine also the fact that we are facing with the COVID-19 crisis. It's kind of health crisis, so it's not NATO issue. I mean, indirectly everything, like all kind of security is in somehow under the umbrella of NATO. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any lecturer who would I like to ask, but if you want, you can, Monica, choose, so we can maybe just touch a bit this kind of topic. Sorry if I didn't really really choose the right one, but I'm really like thinking this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tladjana. It's a very interesting observation of other influences to the security, like you mentioned, climate change. So because as epidemics or pandemics were not seen as the security threats just 6 months ago, and now they are seen. So yeah, it could be a very interesting thing to discuss about. Anyone would like to add something or to this topic, or to maybe say something else and give Bruno is saying, okay, he cannot be on the camera, and he would like to ask through where or which states did new migrant came in Western Balkan during this COVID-19 crisis, and what should be done to end or control this crisis? How will new Serbia, the second question, how will new Serbia-Kosovo agreement from this month signed in Washington influence relations in Western Balkans and especially in Bosnia? So maybe for the, let's go to the second question, and then we can go to the first question. So for the second question, I presume Besworth and Milos would like maybe to add something about this Serbia-Kosovo agreement.
Okay, if I may, or maybe Milos would like to go first. Professor Milos. Yeah. Do you hear me? Yes.
You can go.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, we had recently very interesting agreement, which at least from public announcement, it was stated that it's an economic agreement, not political one. Because, and what is important for us is, let's say, we were seeking so far is that we have this final political agreement which would normalize relations between Kosovo and Serbia. Nevertheless, the agreement in itself, and we can discuss it the way the agreement was reached, and because we have two separate agreements and we don't have direct parties, an agreement which was signed directly by the parties, let's say Kosovo and Serbia. So we have some commitments, an agreement that was signed between Kosovo and United States on one side, and we have an agreement between Serbia and the United States on the other side, but touching upon, let's say, mainly same issues, which makes it a little bit threesome agreement between Kosovo, Serbia, and United States. But from legal point of view, we can discuss it, but it's important to state that substantially the agreement touches upon some important economic issues. And what is said that this agreement is will open the way for around $13 billion of possible investments in Kosovo and Serbia. So then it depends on how much parties are ready to grab on those available money that will eventually put aside by United States for different investments in Kosovo and Serbia. This agreement came about after many years of stagnation on the final agreement to normalize Kosovo and Serbia relations. We started a long time ago. It started in 2011, actually, under mediation of the EU. And it seems that EU still is undergoing under its curse of not being a great political player, although they try to do it through different incentives, mainly through European integration agenda. in a bid to, let's say, pursue parties to reach that agreement. And lately, we had seen other options that were popping out, not official, but politicians and analysts would pop up different solutions, which in itself played a major role in stalling the dialogue and steering it away from the original path that was laid by the EU, that so-called normalization of relations. So these other options that were discussed are border changes or swapping or keeping of status quo, and both of those solutions are not good solutions, because if we have, let's say, border swapping or changes of territories, that might have a direct impact in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Macedonia, and other regions, but also stagnation or keeping of status quo was not or is not a viable option for us, because we need to have a sooner solution in order to let go of the past and to continue to prosper and to focus on important topics that affect the everyday life of our people, such as the rule of law, state consolidation, democratic development, and so on and so forth. So I hope that this agreement will deliver on its promises, which means that to give a push a little bit to economic development of our region, especially Kosovo and Serbia, and then maybe it would be easier for our two states to come about a common solution sooner rather than later, because it is well documented and well understood that political elites can much easily manipulate with people who do not have jobs, who do not have money, and who live in poverty. In this way, they manipulate with people much easily, because politics will become a matter of getting a job, and nationalistic policies will take main stage, and in this way we will always have nationalistic populist leader in our states, which in turn will not do any good to reach a final solution between Kosovo and Serbia. Just briefly, so not to take time for Professor Solayo to give its response.
Thank you, Besford. As always, you are very objective and very moderate in this view, and I think that it would be a really good point to address maybe to some people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly in Republika Srpska, where I live. I'm not so familiar with this entire situation, but because I live in Banja Luka and, as I have just said, in Republika Srpska and Bosnia and Herzegovina. But that agreement was very carefully followed here, because it's very connected with the entire situation regarding stability and security in the Balkans. The first thing that I really have to stress, that is the strong role of United States of America in the region. The first hotspot, which was resolved by American auspice, was the regulation of conflict of the name conflict between Northern Macedonia and Greece. And after that, there are other points and other areas which are absolutely under the huge monitoring and observing of American politics and their role. This is the second point, that the thing that relations between Belgrade and Pristina, because it is usually euphemism for entire situation in order to avoid any sensitive question when we talk about names and titles in the area. And here in Banja Luka and the Republic of Srpska was a really good accepted that fact that Belgrade and Pristina will raise their cooperation on economic way, particularly after these conflicts about imposing that or self-imposing and self-regulated taxes about the import of Serbian goods to Kosovo and so. I think that all these things, particularly in economy, they give one chance for maybe long-lasting negotiations when we talk about political question, because this economic question give a wider framework for discussion, wider time framework for giving opportunity for both sides to enhance their cooperation and to see that all things in the Balkans are really interplayed and that are really interconnected. I think also that there is a huge chance for peace, and there are even few activities even before this agreement, like it was agreement about railroad, Belgrade and Pristina. There's also some understanding between each other about the building infrastructure in the framework of Western Balkans activities, and particularly Berlin Initiative. And so that is really very good and important point that United States, particularly very aware of the huge differences between Belgrade and Pristina, they just set up the entire cooperation on economic basis, and it is really the best way, because with developing all that economic links, economic cooperation, which would enhance the flow of not only of investments, capital, money, or goods, even flow of people, which is really very important. And mini Schengen is one of signs of that. It was the mini Schengen agreement between Serbia, Albania, and Northern Macedonia. And I think that very soon that Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina will join the mini Schengen. It was really the best way how to resolve a political question. I think that after that, as I know, American principles and American style in foreign policy, that some question and some discussion will be moved to Bosnia and Herzegovina, because as I have said in the beginning, there are many differences in Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly in terms of NATO accession. Also, there are many misunderstandings when we talk about European integration, and absolutely huge situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which was on a huge threat of some migrants flow, because there are many migrants who still live in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They are still remain there and without any proper solution. So I would like to say at the end of this my short address that all this crisis, maybe to say hotspots in the Balkans, like Northern Macedonia and Greece dispute, which is fortunately behind us, Pristina and Belgrade negotiations and cooperation, and final stabilization of Bosnia and Herzegovina would be the completion of entire challenges which can really disturb entire peace processes which are already reached in the Balkans, but this time with some new processes in the world. I really have to say that this open war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but regarding that Nagorno-Karabakh, which is one of frozen conflicts and one of de facto states which is developed on post-Soviet space, can provoke some other instabilities or unsecures in the other regions, particularly in a very, very vulnerable region of Western Balkans.
Thank you very much. We also actually partially answered the first question. And before I give the floor to Mevlude, not to make you to write the question because Bruno is not available to talk, so that's why I read his question. I would just like to welcome our Professor Pilotto, who will join us also tomorrow. Hi, Stefano. Nice to see you here. And Mevlude, the floor is yours. If you can say your question aloud so that we can see who of our speakers can reply.
Yes, my question is about pandemic. How NATO responds to this pandemic, and did it help about this pandemic, coronavirus, or not?
Well, we had in our lectures different information about how did NATO actually provided help. I think also Ljubica was mentioning in her Pendarovska in her presentation, but maybe some of our speakers can say additionally about this topic. Aryan, are you raising your hand in the camera or?
No. I had problem with audio, that's why. But please go ahead. No problem.
Okay, so
I listen, but a little bit with problems.
Who Besler? Yes.
Well, that's a good question. I think it also relates to the first question raised by Ms. Slađana Lovrić about other issues about ecological development and so on and so forth. I think that NATO as itself is not that much integrated in order to have its independent institutions and be more and take more that leadership in, let's say, research and development in order to make a bigger contribution in, let's say, fighting pandemic or researching solutions and so on and so forth, because they still, and this is very hot debated issue even currently, that and also that's been going on for many years within NATO. Of course, NATO has its own science and development department. Nevertheless, states and member states of NATO still hold on to their sovereignty and do not want to share that much of science and development. Of course, in this regards, we can see that individual states such as US, Britain, also Germany, France, they all have what is known technical military or industrial military complexes, which combine military also and civilian scientists in order to develop different solutions for problems that may be used for military as well as civilian purposes. And we could see the project Warp Speed that was developed by and initiated by President Donald Trump in the United States. We could see that he gathered the top scientists of the United States, but the deputy director of the project is general or four-star general of United States Army, which tells how military can help a lot in developing solutions to respond to different crisis situations, such as pandemic in this aspect. But this is on at the state level, at NATO level. I think it's not capable of doing that much in this regards, unless it redesigns its department and its competences, which is very hard, at least in current times, but it can do a lot of great job in order to, because we of course, this is not the case here, but if the tension rises because of, we could see that pandemic can cause economic stagnations. There might be riots in one country or another one. We did not see it here yet or elsewhere in the world, but that might sparkle and incite bigger riots and also to have impact in security. And until it has direct impact in security, NATO in that aspect at that stage can do a great role in order to respond to such situation. Of course, much more to respond to situations that maybe are outside of NATO's area, that are coming from outside, rather than a situation that might be developing in between NATO members, such as we could see relations between Greece and Turkey, and NATO is not capable to respond properly in that regard.
Thank you very much. And I see a question from Ljubka. Ljubka, if you would like to also say your question aloud, maybe it would be better for everyone to hear than to read it. It's a very interesting also question, so maybe we can also discuss about it.
Yes, I would like to ask to see that people expect governments to solve a crisis as soon as possible. But what if, like in the COVID-19 crisis, that is not possible? Resilience in society may demand adjustments to new normals, including new perceptions of insecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is a very complex question, and it involves the topic that was actually for the whole world and not only this region. So maybe someone would like to comment or ask another question. Yes, Professor Pilota.
Good afternoon to everyone, and hello, Monica. I would like, yes, to comment the last two questions that are, I think, in one way also connected. How NATO was responding to the emergency. And as we saw in both cases, the European Union and NATO, they, as everyone, they were not prepared to this incredible emergency. But concerning the issue of NATO, I would like to say that, of course, this is a new kind of emergency connected with a new kind of security. NATO was highly focused in his life to take care about, of course, of the security in terms of military, political security, but not health security. This is a new emergency, which is health security. And also NATO was not prepared to that. What to do to face this incredible emergency? My opinion is that both the European Union and NATO reacted quite in a slow way. Then European Union took in some way the leadership of this to react in the framework of the European Union members. NATO also tried to do something, but of course, my opinion is that NATO was a bit embarrassed in front of this crisis because NATO didn't have the necessary tools to react to that. Of course, NATO can give logistic support, which is very important. So military support means logistic support to distribute materials, equipment, medicines, and whatever to the hospital and to the different unit. But everything was, in my opinion, delegated to the local administrations. So every local administration should have a kind of a social unit, an emergency unit, as we have it in Italy, obviously. And that was, in my opinion, the main aspect in the first weeks. As you know, Italy was highly involved in this. We were the first, and this was tragic, we were the first country in Europe to be involved after China in Asia in this, and we were really in the front line. And also the Italian government was not prepared to that, but finally, we think we reacted in a quite good way at the local level. Also, we had help coming from abroad. We were supported by China, by Russia, by Albania, by Cuba. So what was quite curious is that the non-NATO country, except Albania, but the non-NATO countries helped Italy much more than the United States of America and Germany and other countries. Then we got also supported by the Western country, but the first country that supported us were not Western countries, and we had, of course, to recognize this and to thank every single country. Take, for instance, the example of Albania. We were very sensitive to the help that we received from Albania and from Cuba. We cannot say that Albania and Cuba are the biggest and strongest and most powerful countries of the world, but they were sensitive in this sense, and they sent to us equipment, doctors. That was very welcome in Italy. So NATO was quite absent in that moment. Italy is a member of NATO since the very beginning, since 1949. And so my opinion is that NATO as European Union in the beginning did not react as they should have done, but I also understand that they were not prepared to face this emergency. This is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Stefano. So I see that Slađana is having a question just since we are getting approaching the end of an hour. So I would just like to ask, maybe someone else would like to have a question, or okay, Professor Šalaya, you would like to add something?
Just a few words that Stefano provoked me, and that is the thing that me and my colleagues here were thinking about. There is a role of the state in the modern time. That is quite clear that with this coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic, the role of state is getting stronger, because that is inevitably pose the question: are we approaching again to traditional role of state in the security, and do we really try to find a more stronger state that was a state during the developing of integration process, either NATO or European integration? So that is a very interesting question, because here in the region there was absolutely clear that, as Stefano very correctly mentioned, that there is no so helpful activities from NATO. There was no any other. Even European Union in the beginning of the pandemic, it rejected to give any support, and even it forbid the European Union forbid that export of medical equipment in other cases. So states, particularly on itself, every single state was forced to try to find out a way how to defend itself. It's an important question, and we will talk about, I think, much more in a very soon future.
Thank you very much for this comment. So someone else would like to maybe add something to the topic, or I also have one observation that I realized every speaker in our first two topics of the webinars were mentioning the problem of disinformation and of role of media. How would you say that media influenced this pandemic, that is actually and objectively a pandemic, but how did media influence this crisis management communication, and whether it actually made an influence also to, let's say, stability in the region, since we are talking about the region? Maybe I know that our speakers, professors, do have their comments, but I would maybe like to hear if some of you young participants have an opinion about media. You probably are all on social media. You are definitely, whether you want it or not, following at least headlines. in media, when you are browsing on your Facebook, on your Instagram. So you definitely must have opinion about the role of media in this crisis. It's a new type of crisis that the world of latest history hasn't still be within, and definitely we are living in the technologically technologically advanced world that each of us has to be under the influence of media. What is your opinion? I see Carmen, maybe Željko Marjanovic, Bruno. I know he cannot talk now. Christian, Martin Mickovski, yes, and Andrei, yes, yes. Martin first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so obviously the COVID-19 situation has posed as a global problem. However, I believe the media exacerbates the whole issue, and I believe the media is the main responsible fear factor that instills fear into people's hearts, and they view this problem bigger than it actually is, if that makes any sense. I mean, you all understand the COVID is dangerous and we've suffered many people globally. However, the way people view this problem is probably bigger, and it's all because of the media. I believe the media is the most responsible fear factor in this situation.
Okay, thank you. Andrei?
Well, that was my sentiment as well, pretty much. I think that the whole crisis would have been much different if it wasn't for the media, or if we were living in an age where the media was not so important. And in an age, let's say, without internet, I think the whole crisis would be perceived way, way differently.
You think maybe there would be less fear and more...
Definitely, because if something happens, let's say when it started in China, even though it's so distant, because of the constant media updates, I mean, of course, at first we didn't think of it as seriously, I guess, but then it came to Italy in Europe, so it became a bit closer to us. However, the constant media flow, we were bombarded with coronavirus news. Imagine if the internet didn't exist and we weren't hearing about it. I mean, it's still Europe, but we wouldn't get as much notice about what's happening in Italy, for example, if we are living in, I don't know, Serbia, North Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, you know? So I don't think we would fear the whole virus as much as we do now.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Slađana, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, I have so many comments, but regarding the disinformation, I totally agree that a kind of our dependence on the social media and our wish to be updated on any kind of changes, any kind of informations that produce also disinformation, because I saw so many times that some of my friends or people that I know that they are actually looking for the information on, for example, Facebook, on other social media sources and so on. But yeah, as we saw, like there are so many actually also interests that information are not truly. But anyway, on previous, I would like also to come shortly on the previous my comment. I would say that yeah, some of the professors, I think Aryan, he said, Professor Aryan Sarova, he said that, or someone else, but anyway, that we saw how sovereignty actually somehow grows, that states became even like more powerful in our eyes. So I would say that media also influence that kind of view, even though it's truth. But yeah, media somehow actually scared us, but in the same way was a tool of the some governments and so on. But I would also like to say that we saw that this crisis actually demand kind of multi-level collaboration. But what we saw is that each country had kind of different approach to this crisis. So yeah, we have actually to look for a new kind of leadership on a global level concerning, yeah, definitely kind of differences between countries. So also NATO has to look for maybe kind of wider area of the security, because we are not talking anymore about the military security. We are talking about so many levels, also cyber security, which is connected also with these informations and so on. Yeah, in short, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Slađana, for your comment. But we know that NATO is within NATO scope. There are different kind of providing of security, not only military, because NATO is not only an alliance but a military political organization. But I would like, I don't know if you all can see the message from Željko, who is not able to talk, as he said, but he is making a comment to you, Slađana, and saying that it's not he thinks it's not possible to build a new kind of NATO leadership. For example, COVID-19 pandemic showed that the states have different approaches to security issues and security management. So there is not enough trust in international actions and leadership. So different approaches and different views of security. However, we are actually being witnesses of common approach of international community, I would say, that is led by, I don't know who mentioned of our speakers, but that is led by NATO and European Union. And however, definitely this global pandemic was needed to be approached also through local or national level, not local, but national level of states by themselves. Yeah. So, any more comments of our participants or of our speakers? Please don't have to. Yes, Professor Starova.
I will like and will try to be as brief as possible, but I can't promise because there are a couple of things I have to tackle. First, starting from that Washington agreement, Washington DC agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. It was, in a way, to my opinion, a breakthrough. That's why I want to share with my colleagues and with the participants. In what sense? My remark would go very briefly in that sense, that while politicians of both sides or both countries, in Serbia, in Kosovo and Serbia, try to fix the problems and they are stuck in politics, the message of Washington was clear and very simple. A, politicians, not only of these two countries, but all over the world, try to focus on the standard of life of people. And the standard of life, first of all, is economy. And upon the economy, all the other things are flourishing. That was the message. Let's leave aside this, let's say, stalemate like that and try to focus on it. And probably this new climate of cooperation can improve the things, can fuel more goodwill and so on. These were the first comment in the follow of what Besford and what Milos said. I share their opinions, but I don't want to stray on that. Second, on the role of media, I have a lot about that, but I want to say that media during this 6-7 months period of this quarantine, or let's say difficult period of COVID or limitations and so on, showed two sides, one positive side and one bad side. Sometimes this bad side created vain panic among the populations about this, because there are a lot of controversies or controversial information, starting from the World Health Organization, UN, or from the mixing of the politicians' main comments. You know, during these months and even now, we have been watching how politicians and medical doctors or specialists were competing with each other with official declaration, which was wrong to my opinion. But what's very, very, very core, very essential to my opinion is that one problem has come out during these months. Probably some I would like to put it like that, even it might have a bad connotation, but I stress it. I say only the positivity. There should be, let's say, a coherence of information, and that should be done by the agencies. And so that the media do not reflect the controversies between politicians, between countries, between medical doctors and so on, and make a cacophony and a lot of which create panic to the population. So probably a good censorship in the sense of controlling the information in order not to create panic among the population, because media, even that of course created alerts which were necessary very much, but sometimes it created false alarms and so on. You know, I make a question, I put a question, and I don't give an answer, but I leave it to you to think about. We have had influenzas or like these viruses, pandemics, even in the past. What would happen in the past if media would have been so focused like this time? The same. And we have seen a lot of statistics saying that even by other influenzas or virus pandemics, we have had even more deaths, more fatal tolls than this. So what does it mean? So media probably added too much to that. With this, I don't want to say that COVID was not dangerous, and no, the measures were superfluous and so on, but there are a lot to do about. So media, not only on one side should have more responsibilities, not to run after the news and the big news or bad news is good news and so on, but should feel more responsible, but because it creates panic. There are a lot of, not a lot of, but let's say several cases in Albania where people have committed suicide, you know, they throw out from the, let's say, fifth floor of one hospital because of, you know, what hearing about COVID-19 and so on, another case. 2 or 3 or more cases, doesn't matter, but I've heard that in other countries it has happened. So it was an influenza, it was graver than before, but media has played positive and negative role. There are a lot to focus on. And Monica and my colleagues who are watching me, I say that probably that could be an issue for another conference or webinar to stress, to focus on that, the role of media during crisis. This was one type of crisis, COVID, pandemic, and so on, but there are other crises as well. Media is very important. It can play a fully positive role, a mixed role, negative and positive, like in this case, to me, but there are a lot to discuss and to think about how to manage the media. You know, for example, in the first months in Albania, the military and the armored carriers went out on the roads of Tirana, which was crazy, ridiculous. Why? To fight what? With machine guns and so on. And then immediately in question of days, they were wiped out from the roads. But there are a lot of things, and the people were stressed. Then the people got it, and of course, took it more easy and so on. This was the second thing I wanted to say about this. So I took very much probably of your time, but anyway, sorry. These were some of my comments, and I'm still available. We have time, of course. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting comment, and I do have time. I don't know how about you. We actually exceeded 1 hour, as I promised that the first that every Zoom conference will last. Maybe if you are of our speakers also available, you can join us tomorrow as well. I know that participants expressed their will to join us tomorrow, so I don't know, maybe if you have some other comment that you would like to add today, or we can maybe agree that we wait until tomorrow so that I don't take really too much of your time. I think it was a very, very interesting discussion. We actually touched 3 topics, the region, Western Balkan region, the global health issue, and crisis, of course, global health crisis, And the third one, role of NATO. We also touched European Union cooperation between NATO and European Union and how it is important for the region. Thank you very much. Thank you, our dear speakers, my friends. That's why we were on the first name basis. Just to explain, I wasn't saying professor, but I was saying by first name, so not to be misunderstood. And of course, to our young participants who are keen of knowledge. And I invite you to our 2 more Zoom conferences tomorrow and the day after tomorrow at the same time at 5 o'clock. And I see that there are comments written, so maybe I can copy paste them tomorrow and then we can discuss about them tomorrow. Tomorrow we will discuss about how this global health crisis influences democratic principles. And we also had very interesting discussions on this topic. So thank you very much. See you tomorrow, and feel free to ask whatever you think you would like to know more and would be helpful for you to know more about the topic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
All the
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Best wishes
you.
to Monica, to Best Word, to Milos, to Stefano. Stefano, thank you very much for what you said in Albania.
I think
We are brother countries, you know, the Adriatic is not a sea, it's a lake between us. That's why. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye.